Hi, everybody. Mitch Chanabem here. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk about federal contract information, or FCI, and what it is and why it's important. So, we spend a lot of time in the CMMC world talking about CUI, but there's a lot more FCI out there than there is CUI. So, in the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, there's a definition of FCI. It's in FAR 52.204-21, and specifically, I'm going to read it. It says, FCI is, quote, information not intended for public release that is provided by or generated for the government under a contract to develop or deliver a product or service to the government, but not including information provided by the government to the public, such as that on public websites, or simple transactional information, such as that necessary to process payments. So that's a long definition. So let's break it down a little bit. So first of all, not intended for public release. That's pretty clear. It's something that they don't want published. It's either provided by the government or generated for the government, so that it can come in either direction, either from the government to you or from you to the government. So that doesn't help a whole lot. It's developed under a contract to deliver a product or service to the government. So there has to be a contract involved. And it's not simple transactional information like your bank account information necessary to process a payment. Well, that really doesn't help a whole lot. But let's see if we can find some examples of things. So one might be specific contract clauses. There might be in the contract that the government and you sign, there might be some specifications of what it is you're supposed to deliver. Well, yeah, and that could be CUI, but if it's not CUI, it's at least FCI because the government didn't publish that, right? If they publish the RFP with all the contract clauses on SAM.gov, well, then it's public at that point. Even though the government might claim that's not the case, by default it is. But assuming this is a private contract and they haven't published those contract clauses, then that's FCI. The government might provide you with all kinds of information necessary to go implement the contract. Could include connection configurations or credentials, customization requirements, drawings, manuals related to the project. Now, some of that, again, could be CUI, but it is at least FCI. The bid or proposal information, assuming it's not published on a public website, cost breakdown, technical approaches, all that kind of stuff. Contract performance data, which is, reports that you generate on milestones, on financial status, the results of inspections or audits. Typically, none of that is made public. Invoices and payment information, well, other than just the bank account information, if the invoice details what it is you delivered, how far along you are in the contract, what goods and services you provided, quantities, some of that stuff may or may not be public. Assuming it's not public, then that's another example of FCI. Invoices that detail the specifics of what you're doing likely is going to be FCI. And then the other thing is all the project management documents, the schedules, the timesheets, the emails back and forth, project plans, all that stuff is FCI. So, okay, so again, not super clear, but a lot more clear maybe than it was before. So that's good. But generally speaking, the stuff that is necessary to make a contract happen is typically FCI. Why is that important? Because even though we talk about CMMC Level 2 all the time, CMMC Level 1 is going to affect a lot more people. And more importantly, the scope of your CMMC Level 1 is probably going to be different than CMMC Level 2. While, let's say you have some controlled unclassified information, like specifications on how to build something, you might be able to, lock that down to a small engineering team that's working on the project. FCI is going to affect, maybe marketing, maybe sales, maybe accounting, potentially HR, executive management. So, as you look at what's required for CMMC Level 1, and it's a lot simpler than what's required for CMMC Level 2, think about who is involved, who is in scope, and do you really have the requirements met for all those groups that are in scope for CMMC Level 1. If we can help you figure that out, we'd be happy to do that. If we can help you get compliant if you're not compliant, we'd love to do that as well. Remember, CMMC Level 1 is all or nothing. There's no partial credit. There's no Paul Aram's plan of actions and milestones. It's either you are or you aren't. So hopefully that's helpful to you in terms of understanding CMMC Level 1. Until next time, stay safe. Thanks for listening.